Hi, y'all, and welcome to tonight's live stream. Today may go down as one of the most damaging days yet for the Commonwealth in the Karen Read retrial. And it all came down to one witness, Massachusetts State Trooper Yuri Bukhenik. Unbelievable cross-examination. Absolutely one of the finest pieces of legal work I have ever seen. Bukhenik took to the stand to testify about what he saw at the crime scene, about how those red taillight pieces and clear from Karen Read's car were found right there at the scene, right where John O'Keefe's body had been found. That is the central evidence for the Commonwealth, that Karen Read's taillight was broken. The pieces were found right where her boyfriend's body was. Therefore, she ran into him with her car. Critically important for them. But today was all about the cross-examination. Now, Bukhenik himself either was present or by himself even collecting some of these pieces. And the cross-examination was just brutal, utterly scorched earth. It exposed massive gaping holes in the very flawed investigation into the case. Now, Bukhenik had to admit things like that. He didn't document where he found key evidence, that he didn't mark some of the evidence at all. And he didn't know who had, although someone had. And if that wasn't enough, then there were the text messages. These weren't even Bukhenik's text messages, but they were so cringy. They would make a middle schooler blush. Okay, these were really bad. And he was forced to read them out loud. They were between Brian Higgins and the defendant, Karen Read. I figure it was some kind of punishment for having messed up the investigation so badly. They were just absolutely painful, flirty, needy, a little obsessive. And Bukhenik had to read them line by line out loud in court. Now, to some degree, they hurt Karen Read. But coming as they did in the middle of this scorched earth cross-examination of Yuri Bukhenik, it mostly somehow seemed to tarnish the Commonwealth. Because why did Brian Higgins ask Karen Read to meet up again? Why did he sound jealous of her boyfriend? Was there something going on there? Would he have a motive to kill John O'Keefe? That's Karen Read's argument. So can the Commonwealth come back from today? Did we just watch the defense flip the script entirely? We will find out. We're going to talk about exactly that tonight. We're diving into all of it. We're going to break down day 13 of the Karen Read retrial. So Texas, special shout out to our first five in tonight's chat: Texas 2 Pugs, Kim Bruno, White Mountain Witchery, Oklahoma Gigi, and Michael Lalonde. All right, well, with no further ado, I want to pop into what we are going to be talking about tonight. I'm got a bunch of screens open here. Let me see if I can get to the right spot to talk to you about it. Okay, so probably one of the most frustrating things, I think, from the Commonwealth's point of view is that a lot of, if you watch today, a lot of what happened really did not have to happen. It stemmed from Bukhenik's absolute refusal to acknowledge something really simple, that Trooper Proctor was the lead investigator. Now, he just was. He just was the lead investigator. There are plenty of reasons why the Commonwealth of Massachusetts doesn't want to acknowledge in any way the connection. Trooper Proctor has been thoroughly discredited. What he had to say was just about Karen Read was really appalling. He's been not only punished for that, he's been fired for that. And so obviously they don't want to hang their entire investigation on Trooper Proctor. But frankly, it would have been way better if they had just stood up and admitted a few things. If they had just said, look, yeah, there were some big mistakes that were made, and Trooper Proctor was in fact the lead investigator, and he frankly really messed up. Fortunately, we were able to still collect the evidence. Fortunately, we're able to still prove that this evidence is what it is, and that Karen Read did this. If they had done that, the whole day would have looked very different. And that's not what happened, which is part of what made today so dramatic and so exciting. So let me ask, would you mind hitting the like button? That'll help the video get out. I would really appreciate that. If you have not already joined us, if you have not already subscribed, we would love to have you do that. Thank you, Magali. I appreciate this. That is certainly only your blue, counselor. I don't know about that, but thank you very much for the super chat, and we will see what happens. I have to say, I saw the last trial, or at least the majority of it, and I saw cross-examination that was really good last time. This exceeded anything from the last time. So let's talk a little bit about this first clip that I want to show you. And thank you, Magali. I really appreciate that. So Bukhenik, one of the things they had to talk about was the fact that Bukhenik collected evidence, these critically important pieces of taillight, and 1 month later, someone else bagged it and wrote in what it was. I mean, that already is just insane. And you really would be better to just acknowledge that. But also problematic was that there are a lot of questions now about where exactly was the taillight. Could it have been planted by Trooper Proctor? That's what Karen Reed's team says. Or was it down near the ground, right by the body? Was it clear that it really came from the taillight of Karen Reed's car? But they didn't document that. They didn't say, here's where those pieces were. And so that has created some problems.
After the fact, that establishes that they were recovered generally at 34 Fairview Road on February 10th. But is there a report that describes exactly where on the property at 34 Fairview or off the property at 34 Fairview these 20 items were found? That's a question. I'm waiting.
Oh, I didn't realize.
I left that in for obvious reasons.
Do you need me to repeat the question?
Was there a question? Go ahead, please.
Sure. Is there a report that documents exactly where at 34 Fairview on the property these 20-odd items were found exactly?
The report documenting where they were recovered from is number 83 that you've just presented. Exact location is the same general vicinity. If it was something different, if we located these items across the street, different section of the yard, that would have been documented.
What's documented in the report that you just referenced says bullet point 2/10/22, meaning February 10/22 at 9:15 a.m. Sergeant Bukhenik secured 6 pieces of red, black, and clear plastic, period. That's what it says, right?
Yes, same general vicinity. If there was a different location...
That's what the report says, isn't it? That's all I'm asking. That's what the report says, what I just quoted.
That's the description of the items
So the answer is yes. That's what the report says.
That is part of the report. That is the description of the items recovered on that date.
And the bullet point beneath that says February 10th, 2022 at 9:15 a.m. Sergeant Bukhenik secured 14 pieces of glass and plastic fragments. Correct?
That's correct.
There is no further description of where those items were found, is there?
Okay, now a good answer here would have been, no, there's not, but that is not the answer that the witness gave.
There is.
What's the further, where's the report with the further description of exactly where they were found?
It might not be in the report. It might be on the description of the bag, describing that it was 34 Fairview Road. The report indicates and encompasses itself where those items were recovered from. Clearly, the same general vicinity the initial items were recovered from. If there was a need to document a different location, it would have happened.
But you didn't see the need to document the exact coordinates where those items were found, did you? You didn't see the need.
It did not happen.
and it indicates location where collected.
Let me stop right there for a minute. So he went on to tell Jackson, that's the attorney for Karen Reed, he said, well, yeah, it would be documented on the evidence bag. So then that opens it up for Alan Jackson to be able to go through the really long, complicated process of putting in the evidence bag and having him read the evidence bag and then saying, okay, it says nothing but 34 Fairview. Everyone knew it said nothing but 34 Fairview. The witness knew that. He should have just said, yes, that's right. That's all it says, 34 Fairview, nothing more. That would have been far more effective than what actually happened, because the fact that he fought over every little detail meant an opportunity for Alan Jackson to show over and over again that he was hiding or misleading or failing to give the entire truth. It made him look bad when it didn't even really have to. Now, what should they have done when they collected those pieces of taillight? Normally, you would expect a little diagram. Okay, here's where it was. Here's piece 1, piece 2, piece 3. That's kind of typical. They didn't do any of that. They just picked up pieces and put them in bags. And so now he's going to have to admit that.
And there's several lines that are available to fill in, correct?
Correct.
On that first line, what does that read?
34 Fairview Road, Canton, MA.
And that's it, correct?
That's all that was put, yes.
So, and he knew that. He knew that that was all that was there. It's just 34 Fairview. There's no one did a cross with lines to figure out, okay, this is 3 feet from here and 2 feet from there. No one did any of that. No one marked even generically where they would be on a little diagram. Instead, they just wrote 34 Fairview and put it in a bag, and that creates some gaps and some problems and opportunity for the defense to complain about this. So I want to say thank you to Mr. Wu and also to Mildred. We've got lots of humor in the chat. Mr. Wu talking about the Lexus transforming into a German Shepherd. Now, the Karen Reed side believes that John O'Keefe was bitten or scratched by a German Shepherd. And Mildred is talking about the fact that the lawn this is pretty funny, that the lawn seems to be the Albert's biggest cash crop. It did yield over and over again for a significant period of time, more and more pieces of that tail light. So thank you both. I appreciate the humor. I also enjoy that in the chats when I watch those during the day as the trial goes. Those are a lot of fun. Okay, so then to make matters much, much worse than what we've already seen. Now, what we've already seen is there wasn't a lot of documentation. Just here are some pieces, and we found them somewhere in the yard of this address. Very vague. And now we learned that Bukhenik himself is not even the person who filled out this sheet you see here that says 34 Fairview. He's not even the one who did that. And this just gets worse and worse.
And you didn't fill this bag out, did you?
No, I did not.
Who did?
I do not know.
Who did?
I don't know.
You don't recognize the handwriting?
No, I do not.
You don't recognize the handwriting of your partner and subordinate, Michael Proctor?
Objection.
Who did you give it to bag?
I bagged it myself.
Whose handwriting is that?
I do not know.
If you bagged it yourself, why didn't you fill out the evidence envelope?
Okay, that's just, there's no answer to that. If he bagged it, he should have filled out the sheet on it explaining what it was, because how is someone going to know that later? And it just is odd.
I bagged it and turned it over, and I told him exactly where it was and what time, so someone else wrote the information.
You just said, I bagged it and told him.
Turned it over.
No, sir. No, sir. What you just said was, I bagged it and turned it over to him. And you don't know who it is that you turned it over to? Who's the him?
Turned it over to them.
Who's
them?
Okay.
Whoever wrote it. Whoever wrote it.
So we're just in a circle here.
Now, let me make a comment about some of the reactions that Alan Jackson has to the witness testimony throughout this. it is over the top. He makes a lot of comments about it, like, so we're just in a circle here. And we heard another one earlier. I don't even remember what it was, but in the clip, another one where he makes little comments like that. He did that all day. I personally think that was a mistake. I think it definitely does make him appear to be in control of the cross-examination and shows what he wants the jury to think. But I did think that the comments were out of place. Sometimes there was an objection, although rarely, for the most part, he got away with it. I think it also runs the risk of annoying the jury, of making the jury think that you were mean, and then maybe they side with the witness. There is no possibility that that happened here, given the cross-examination and given how it played out. I don't think that could conceivably have happened. So I don't think that's a problem in this case, but it can be a problem. If the jury perceives you as the attorney as being mean, then they may just think, well, that poor witness, they should be nicer to that poor witness and feel sympathetic toward the witness. And it would undermine the entire point of the cross-examination. Okay, so here's what Yuri Bukhenik is doing here. He is refusing to admit that he turned this bag over to Michael Proctor. Now, we can pretty much figure that out because Michael Proctor was the lead investigator. They can call him whatever they want, but that's just a fact. He's the one who did most of the paperwork and most of the work in the case. So that left this enormous hole for Alan Jackson to drive the train through. Okay, if he didn't turn it over to Proctor, who did he turn it over to? And it ends up being a real problem for the Commonwealth.
You had the evidence and turned it over to someone whom you don't know and can't identify. Is that what we understand?
It was a member of the Massachusetts State Police assigned to our office. It wasn't just a random person. I can't specifically identify who it was or who wrote on that bag. I know it was a trusted member of our unit and part of the investigative team.
How do you know it was a trusted member of your unit and a part of the investigative team if you can't tell these jurors who it was? How do you know that?
Because I wouldn't have turned it over to a random stranger.
So it might have been just a random stranger.
So, and what he has Bukhenik do next is he has him name each person it could be. There were only 4. And he says, okay, did you give it to this person? And he had to say, well, I don't remember. Did you give it to that person? I don't remember. What about this one? This one? He goes through all that. All of this takes a massive amount of time and a massive amount of patience, but it's directly relevant and it's directly caused by the way Bukhenik answered the question.
That's a ridiculous suggestion.
So I think I talked over part of it. So what Alan Jackson said was, so it might have been just a random stranger, right? And the witness, Bukhenik, says, that's ridiculous. Of course not. And so since Bukhenik just would not admit that Trooper Proctor was the lead investigator, Jackson took Bukhenik through a raft of reports that Trooper Proctor had signed. Evidence bags Trooper Proctor had filled out, just Proctor about all the things he had done. Does he recognize the handwriting? All of those kinds of questions. It was completely apparent, I think, to the jury by the end that Proctor was the lead investigator and that for some reason, the jury may not even fully understand why. They were told in opening statements that Proctor had been fired because of what he did in this case, but they don't know much about that, and they may or may not remember that single comment. But they do have a lot of information now that Proctor is heavily involved and that for some reason the Commonwealth doesn't want to admit it. I do not know why the witness was so determined to refuse to admit that Michael Proctor's hands were all over this, that he did this. So next, Jackson hands Bukhenik a stack of documents.
It appears to be a bunch of handwritten notes from possibly witness interviews.
Handwritten notes by whom?
Well, you
Yes.
labeled it Proctor. I don't know who it is based on the individuals interviewed. might suggest that these are Michael Proctor's notes.
Okay, so you're testifying that I labeled that, Proctor?
I don't know.
Right, so you don't know.
Well,
So
you provided a document to me, so.
Right, I know. And then you just testified that I labeled that Proctor. How do you know I labeled that Proctor?
Well, I got it from you.
You didn't see me write that note. Objection.
Sustained. Questions, please.
Sure. That appears to be a series of Michael Proctor's notes, correct?
That's what's suggested, yes.
And that's not even important. It's not even anything that is going to take Karen Reed's case somewhere. It's not as if just the fact that Proctor wrote these out in and of itself means Karen Reed either did or didn't commit this crime. But the fact that they make such a big deal of running away from it created an opportunity for the cross-examination. So, and I will say it is surpassingly strange that the evidence bag was filled out by someone other than the person who collected it. And not just that, but a month later, we'll start with by someone else. Give it a second.
In the ordinary course of business, is it normal standard operating procedure that the person who recovers items of evidence fills out the evidence bag contemporaneous to the recovery of the item?
It's possible you can do that if there's a reason that you have to leave, an emergency or weather conditions you can't write on the bag. You can fill it out later if you have the time and you know where you recovered it from, which is like, in this instance, if it was a general vicinity where all the other fragments of evidence was collected from, it's known that it was within the general area of that section of the lawn near the flagpole between the street and the flagpole and the fire hydrant.
Well,
so
the
it's
person that filled out that evidence envelope wasn't with you.
Well, I passed that information along to them.
I see. So now it's hearsay information that's being passed along to someone else to fill out the envelope. Objection.
Sustained.
It's secondhand, let's use that word, secondhand information to the person that's filling out the evidence envelope, correct?
No, it's firsthand information. I passed it along to them.
So it went from you to a person filling out the envelope who wasn't there. Let's at least agree on that.
I was by myself, so yes, I told the individual what time, what location, the case number, the date, obviously.
How do you know? How do you know that you told the individual to whom you passed this along the time, the location, the date? How do you know that as you sit here?
Because that information was then put on the bag and documented.
But you can't even remember who you talked to.
Right? Very good point that Jackson is making right there. And even stranger is the fact that the evidence bag form was filled out by someone else and it was done a month after the pieces were collected. That certainly suggests that they were sitting around in some unprotected form for an entire month till someone said, hey, we should probably bag these. By then, of course, no one had any idea where exactly they were found, so it was way too late to document that.
You're aware that that particular bag, that evidence bag, was not booked until March 14th, 2022, correct?
I don't understand what you're saying.
Those pieces of evidence were never booked into evidence until March 14th, 2022.
Those particular pieces of evidence were collected on February 10th, 2022.
Sergeant Bukhenik, do you know the difference between collecting a piece of evidence and booking it into evidence? Creating a booking label, creating an evidence log, things of that nature? Do you know the difference?
I understand the difference, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so one of the most difficult parts of the case for the Commonwealth is explaining how it came about that the Canton police chief spotted yet more pieces of the taillight in the front yard of 34 Fairview weeks after the accident and after the yard had been searched repeatedly. How were these pieces still there? So, and one of the searches had been done by Bukhenik himself. It is frankly really hard to understand how so many pieces of taillight were missed. One of the arguments that the Commonwealth has made was, well, there was snow there. And if there was snow, then maybe it covered over those pieces. That's why they weren't spotted right at first. So Jackson took Bukhenik painstakingly in long form. I'm giving you little clips, just short to get to the point, but it took a long time to say, yes, this is exactly how big some of these pieces were. They were put next to a ruler. This one was 7 inches. This one 7.5 to 8, and this one 3.5. These were not tiny. These weren't little bitty specks that someone might miss. These were large pieces, some of them red, in the yard. So how did Bukhenik manage to miss those in his search? He's admitted in this case that there was very little snow on the ground when he did one of the searches. So here's what he said.
Very little, but there was still snow on the ground.
You indicated that you obviously looked around the area. You talked about the general area. I think you used the word general vicinity, right? When
Yes.
you collected your items.
Yes.
You didn't see this, and you didn't see the one before it either, did you?
If I saw any of these items, they would have been collected. What does that mean? I was jealous that she had your number. Look,
Let me stop for a minute.
like you're
I want to talk. Busy reading the comment. Sorry. And I'll back us up just a little bit or read for us what we missed. So Zach had an interesting question here. What are the chances that Yuri Bukhenik came into his testimony thinking he'd have the same role as last year, with Proctor being the bad guy, and suddenly realizing, wait, he is the villain in this year's Karen Reed trial, that he was the surrogate for that whole triangle between Proctor and Brian Albert and Brian Higgins that is so central to Karen Reed's defense. And I don't know when he realized that how bad it was going to be. It's not like it went well last year either. It went really badly last year, but today was just unbelievable. And it was, anyway, I'm almost at a loss for words, but lawyers are never fully at a loss for words. So Zach, I agree with you. It's not just, though, that he had a bad day yesterday and a bad day today. He's still on the stand. He's still going to have a bad day on Monday. I don't know how he gets through the weekend. It was brutal, absolutely brutal. All right. So I'll go ahead and I'll save the questions for at the end. I see Timothy's. Thank you, Mitt Spunky. I appreciate the super sticker very much. And Matthew, thank you for gifting 20 Lawyerly memberships. I appreciate that. I'll talk a little bit more about memberships at the end. So thank you very much, Matthew. If you haven't turned on your ability to receive the random free gifted memberships from YouTube, when YouTube gets these gifts, it just parcels these out. We don't have any say on it, but you have to turn on a little ability to receive it, some switch. And our mods will put that in the chat for you in just a minute. So, all right. Now we get into what was, it was just, it was really hard to listen to. It was hard to listen last year. I guess maybe the fact that it was the second time, it was just worse and worse. It was like the worst possible version of a Disney middle school movie, it was just what these people were writing. You're like, oh my gosh. And Bukhenik, having already had a really bad day, having already gone through extremely brutal cross-examinations, now having to read these out. It isn't even that they're his text messages, but they are central to what Karen Reed's team is saying, shows that Brian Higgins was in love with Karen or infatuated with her and very jealous of her boyfriend, John O'Keefe. And so maybe, Karen Reed says, Brian Higgins is the one who killed John O'Keefe. Karen's theory is she let John O'Keefe out in front of 34 Fairview. He was supposed to go into a party, and he did. He got in there, someone in there killed him, and they dumped him in the front yard. Now, of course, Commonwealth says nobody did that. He never even made it inside the party. Instead, she killed him with her vehicle right there on the front lawn. The taillight pieces scattered around him prove it. So in these cringy text messages show it doesn't even amount to an affair between Brian Higgins and Karen Reed. You see people describe it as flirty. That's not even really the right word. Just cringe, I think, is the correct word for that. But it is just surreal having them read by this largely discredited state trooper. It was almost like just a punishment, like I said earlier, for his poorly documented investigation. You, sir, will be the one who has to read these embarrassing text messages. So we're going to look at just some of the greatest hits among these. Don't say I didn't warn you. These are cringy, but you have to hear them in order to understand what's happening in the case. So, all right. And I'll start out kind of give you a little background about what happened. Karen Reed is the one who initiates this. She's been dating John O'Keefe, but they are apparently having some issues. She tells Brian Higgins that in these text messages. And she just all of a sudden, out of the blue, contacts Brian Higgins. His first thought is, how did you get my phone number? I try to keep that really secret. And she's like, yeah, well, I got it from your friend. Don't worry. And she starts sending him these kind of flirtatious text messages. And like any good middle schooler, he is very skeptical about why the hot cheerleader is suddenly reaching out to him. And he says cringy things like, are you serious or messing with me? But, he just can't help himself. He starts to respond. And the next thing, she invites him over to John O'Keefe's house, her boyfriend's house, to play cards with a group. And when the evening is over, apparently she walks him out and kisses him. Now, when we read this, the blue bubbles, what he's going to read it. The blue bubbles are Higgins, Brian Higgins. The gray is Karen Reed. You should know that these were not taken from Brian Higgins' phone by a data dump, which would be normal. Normal, they would actually do an extraction from the phone. Instead, we will find out later that Brian Higgins destroyed his phone and went to some pretty great pains to do it. We'll get into that another night. But for tonight, we're going to talk about just what he actually turned over. He said, yeah, I ran this and it's all you have and all you need. And here it is. But the Commonwealth and the state troopers can't back that up. He was himself an ATF agent, and he used some software, some machinery they had there in order to do this. So blue is Higgins, gray is Karen Reed, and the Karen starts to play into this. You'll see.
Elected. What does that mean?
He's reading at the top in the blue. This is Higgins. What does that mean? Okay, and now we're going to have Karen respond, and then there will be a bunch of blues.
Jealous that she had your number. Look, like you're either all in or you're out. Why would you be jealous? I am not attracted to her at all. I have always been attracted to you. Really? Yes. Since the first time I saw you, we would have fun. Yeah, but where is that?
Let me stop there. So some of these are going to set up the motive that the state pushed more in the first trial. The state suggests that Karen Reed believed John O'Keefe was cheating on her, that he was having an affair with someone. We've had various hints, someone he was on the cruise with over at New Year's, or maybe the mother of one of the girls who was in sports with his own niece who lived with him. So, but Karen Reed, according to the state's theory, which was really pushed in the first trial, and we've heard a lot less about in this trial, believed John O'Keefe was sleeping with someone else. That's what the state thinks. And so now you're going to hear Karen Reed talk about that.
I had all my shit here for a couple of years, and my house has been vacant, but I'd like to get closer to the water. Are you breaking up or staying together? I don't know. He hooked up with another girl on vacation. I am very close to his niece. It is a very up situation.
So, like I said, I'm going to cut this way back because I think you can only take so much. But she sends wildly mixed messages. And he responds, as the junior high boy would do. He's very confused. He isn't sure if she likes him or doesn't like him.
What is the question? Do you feel guilty texting me? No. Okay. What do you want from me? Nothing. Do you want anything from me? I would hang out. Oh, gee, thanks. OMG. What am I supposed to say? You're being tough on me. None of us is married. True. So game on? We can say whatever we want. Game on? You send mixed messages. I wish I stayed. Okay, game on then.
So he's saying he wish he had stayed at a party where she was. And because he thinks she's kind of coming on to him. Now, the jury does not know this yet, but we know from the first trial that at one point, Karen Reed actually went to Brian Higgins' house. And there was a buildup, and maybe they were going to do something. It was kind of vague, but the bottom line is nothing happened. They had a drink, and she ended up leaving fairly quickly. And we saw that in the text messages as they discussed. So you'll start to hear some of that.
Do you really want to come over? Only if you want me to. Can you take charge? I thought we already settled this. Haha.
Just...
Okay, well, I am in my car and now getting on the highway. This feels like I am forcing you. Not at all. I am game. Okay, well, I'd like to know where the hell I'm going. Pike or 93? You just want to meet me at the crib, or do you want to come over? Pike, I would daub say. You decide. I don't know either. Whatever you want. I don't either. Play so wherever you're comfortable. Just so.
Okay, so just his sort of slow reading of it, coupled with what's being said. I don't know. To me, it was way worse than last time, and it just continues to get really, really worse.
So you know, I thought you were extremely hot off the rip.
That's
amazing personality.
Saying that.
I could go on and on, but I do not want to pump your shut up too much. Thanks for saying that, but low comps at Hillside. You know how to ruin something nice. I frequent other places. John has showed me about 5 times the ring video of me walking.
And let's stop it there. So now what she's about to do is give him utter reason to panic. And this is part of what Karen Reed's team says may have been the reason that Brian Higgins just kind of went over the edge, because he may have believed that John O'Keefe suspected that Karen Reed had kissed Brian Higgins and done it as she was walking him out of a party right there at John O'Keefe's home, that she had kissed him on the way out. And maybe she knows that. Maybe John O'Keefe has found that out. So
you out on Saturday, and my voice and my accent are killing me softly. What? Yeah, he has cameras everywhere. You cops. Jesus. He like, Christ, are you guys hooking up? OMG, great.
So he's suggesting, she is suggesting John O'Keefe had cameras everywhere. Those cameras, of course, will play a role in the fact that there is some video of the vehicles right outside there. There's video, for example, when Karen Reed backed into John O'Keefe's car early that morning. She says that's where her taillight got cracked, not when, according to the Commonwealth, she hit John O'Keefe. But what she's saying to him here is, oh, he's got video everywhere and he suspects us. He has been asking if I've been having an affair with you. And then, so Brian Higgins is, well, really? What does he know? And is asking a lot of questions around that. So it's kind of like just some drama added to his life from.
I don't need your drama, dude.
Speaking of.
No, it's fine. Seriously? I am serious. You legit planted one on me. I know where the cameras are anyway. Duh. Oh my God, Bruins. So your slick move isn't on there? Of course not. OMG. I almost. It was a peck anyway. LOL, funny. So now he is jealous of me? No. I told you he likes you a lot, which makes this worse.
You know what was one thing that was really interesting was sometimes Buchanan couldn't really help himself. He would kind of read it with a little emphasis and like, just, no, that isn't what I thought at all. And you could kind of see that he was following along and reading it probably like the person would have emphasized it. So we go on. Brian informs Karen that he's a lot of fun. And she says, well, I hate people, but I'm really fun too.
Because I am a lot of fun. So am I. I'm sure I'm more fun than you. How so? Details. I don't know. I hate people on the whole, but I've been told by many people that I'm a lot of fun. Does Melissa know?
So he wants to know if anyone knows she likes him. It's like the note passed, do you like me? Check yes or no. And so he wants to know, does anyone know that you really are into me?
Oh, you dig me? Ballsy? Not really. I already know you. True. But you have a man. Cracks, and it's far from perfect. I doubt it. The PT of dating is to not get...
Sorry, a little faster.
...tied down. If you're not confident, you should be. In my mind, anyways. The first two, but I don't care too much about the other girl. Okay, so he is cool with... Anyways. The first two, but I don't care too much about the other girl. Okay, so he is cool with you dating other people?
All right, let's see how far I have to go to stop that. I don't know exactly where it will stop. I'll just move it a little bit. That's a little too fast for human consumption.
From perfect. I doubt it.
There we go.
If he is seeing someone else, I wouldn't want to know either way. He probably feels the same. And you probably feel that way about whoever you hook up with. I think that's normal. Okay. You don't agree with me? You make some valid points. No shit, Sherlock. Come on, I'm funny. Sit on that and spin. See? Now you have to go below the belt. Love it there. Do you wear belts? Only once in a while. Okay. When I go into the office. Okay. Rando. Haha.
I really think we need a brand new rule of evidence that text messages like this can never be admitted in a court of law. Just no one should have to read these. It's just appalling. So they go back and forth over who is going to initiate the next move. Oh, you like me? No, I like you. No, you. I mean, just that kind of stuff. And so here we'll see a little of that. Who's going to make the move?
Ball's in your court. What do you want? Loaded question. What do you want? I asked you. Nope. You initiated this. Spit it out. Hey, we're single and we don't have kids. We can do whatever we want. Don't you have a boyfriend? Where are you? Canton. Where? My office at the PD. Why are you going to Mansfield? Where is that? Canton PD. I have a house there from before I reconnected with John. Oh, I feel like you're not really saying what's on your mind. Do you like me? Yes, clearly.
Heck yes or no?
Come over to my house. When? When works for you? Whoever, whenever. When works for you? I asked you first. I think you're messing with me. I'm glad you came over tonight. Me too. Ball's in your court. What do you want, Karen? You look great tonight. I don't know. What do you want? You always do. Yeesh, really? Why? I look great? You're full of it. I think you're hot. I always have thought that. Just have not revealed my thoughts. I'm hot for the hillside. Low comps. Knock it off. You're hot, period. Are you glad you walked me out? Yes. Are you? Def. Yes. Are you going home tonight or tomorrow a.m.? We kissed, right? Is this a trick question? Why?
So he says, I'm following your lead. And this is how she responds to that comment.
My lead. I don't want any responsibility. You started this, right? Why did you get my number and each out of me and each out to me? Still have not told me. Sorry, should I not have? I am fine with it. Just don't know why you can't answer. You're mad at me? OMG. No, not at all. You're being silly. I told you. I just think you're like me, and I am attracted to you a lot. Feelings mutual. I just never saw this coming. Why? Because I just assumed you were happy with your situation. I was, but things have deteriorated. No, I'm not aggravated at all. Okay, we're good. I will see you around. I knew this is how you would act. Whatever. You can get most any guy you want, so you're not losing any sleep over this. None of that is true. I'm not talking to any other guys, and I have issues with John, and things are far from perfect. Aren't you afraid you might actually like me? I don't think that's a bad thing. Isn't that the point? Well, it would be complicated because you have a boyfriend.
All right, so we made it through all the clips I had to show you. That is just the most cringeworthy testimony I have seen in a court of law. I think there really needs to be a brand new rule of evidence that addresses text messages like that. I don't know how exactly it would be phrased or worded, but that just shouldn't happen. So in any event, it was quite the day. It was Karen Reed all day, all day long. It was nothing but good for her. There was a little bit with those text messages that is problematic for her. She does look needy, not just in those, but in the messages she sent to John O'Keefe earlier. She is kind of flirting with the idea of having an affair on her boyfriend. But the fact that it got thrown into this particular witness who had already been so discredited really helped Karen Reed and really made it a lot less of the problem it was for her last time. It's not that it went away, but somehow the fact that it came in through cross it just really helped her, I felt like. If you have some questions, if you would put those in the chat now, if you would put question marks at the front of those, I would appreciate it. I will have an easier time spotting it. So I'm going to answer a few questions over in the super chats next, and then we'll get to the other ones, as many as I can possibly do. I also want to tell you about something very exciting that we are doing next week. I will be introducing someone new to the channel, my daughter. We are headed to Iceland, land of fire and ice, and we will be reporting back together on the Karen Reed case. Now, she doesn't know much about the trial yet, so I'll be walking her through it and just getting her reaction. I have no idea how this is going to go. She's highly entertaining, but I don't know how it will go. So we're going to put stuff under members only, at least at first, while we see, like, can we do this? But we may bring some out from under that too. I think it's going to be a ton of fun. If you're not a member now, it's the perfect time to hit the join button down there under Lawyer Lee. Right next to the channel name, Lawyer Lee. If you're on your iPhone, you're going to have to go in either through the browser instead of the app on your phone, or you're going to have to use your computer because there's no join button on the iPhone. But we're going to at least start them as members only. I do need your help. I will not be able to watch the trial gavel to gavel as I have been doing. I would really appreciate your summaries and your short clips from what happened. If you send me a short clip, then it would be best to send that to me as a privated video on YouTube, just so that's about the only way I'll be able to open them. So I would love that. I would really like your input helping me shape what we are going to be covering from halfway across the globe. So next week will be wild. It will be weirdly Icelandic, and you definitely don't want to miss that. I don't know exactly how it'll be, but it's going to be a lot of fun. All right, so let me go through some of the questions over here in the super chats and a few thank yous too. Lisa has been a member for 11 months. Yay. glad for that. Camilla Juliana is a new member. She's been around for quite a while, so I'm so glad to have you as a member. And Nana of 7, really concerned about the sloppy police work. And it was on full display today. Kurt has a really good point here. It's talking about the evasiveness not working. I think it had exactly the opposite effect. I think it played into the idea that this was such a poor investigation. I think if he had just admitted some things, hey, we really messed up with our investigation. Yeah, we should have been a lot tighter. We made some new rules. We're not going to do that again. Fortunately, in this case, we were able to correctly and safely identify each and every piece. Thank goodness we were able to do that. But we were a little sloppy in the way we gathered it. That would have been so much more effective than most of that cross would have been. It's not that it wouldn't happen at all. It just would be a lot less effective. It would have been a lot shorter. Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate it. Lisa S. Helen talking about how did AJ manage to keep his cool? That is definitely a question, but this would have been a lot of fun for Alan Jackson, because it was just top of the line cross-examination. Really brutal, but very well done. Candace, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And Laura Lou is a new member. All right, so I am going to head over to some questions, and I have a few more people to thank. I think I need to back up a little bit for the first questions. All right, I'm going to back up a little ways. I don't know how far. I probably missed some at the front, Emma. I'm sorry about that. Susan wants to know, why is Yuri Bukhenik reading all of the text messages? Why doesn't Brian Higgins come in and read them himself, as he did last time? I can't answer that for sure, except it may be that Karen Reed's team is concerned that Brian Higgins isn't coming to trial, at least for the Commonwealth, and therefore thinking we may have to put Brian Higgins in as a witness on direct, and we don't want to do that. Instead, we want to put it in right now through this witness. So there may even have been some agreements among the parties, like, well, we won't call Brian Higgins in our defense case if you will agree that Yuri Bukhenik can read these messages, something like that. There may have been something in that. I think they just wanted to make 100% sure that they got those in evidence, and they must have been a little worried about it. All right, let's see, who else am I? Tracy asking me. Yeah, Tracy, yeah, those texts. Oh my, I don't even know what to say. Kate S. I may have to share those with my daughter. She's a psychology major, so I have to say, what do you think about these? What does she mean when she says ask it differently? Oh, great question, Kate. So what she's talking about is that the form of the question was not right. So the judge, you'll sometimes hear the judge say, ask it differently, Mr. Jackson. And there will be an objection. She'll say, ask it differently, Mr. Jackson. What she's saying is, the judge is saying, there's nothing wrong with the question. It's the way you phrased it. And you aren't allowed to phrase it that way, but there might be a different way you could do it. So that's what she's suggesting. All right, Candace, don't you think the jury has seen how manipulative she is, and that it speaks to her hatred for John O'Keefe? That is definitely, Candace, a downside for what is being seen in those text messages. There is definitely negative for that for Karen Reed. There's just no question about it. I mean, it makes her look fairly juvenile. She's cheating on John O'Keefe, or not really cheating, but kind of playing with the idea of cheating on him. She clearly doesn't seem to have a deep, passionate love for him. And we saw in the messages that were read earlier in the trial between John O'Keefe and Karen Reed that they had been fighting all day long. And it was kind of a dumb fight. It was just this kind of, well, you aren't paying enough attention to me kind of fight. It wasn't even like a real fight. They weren't actually having much of an issue. Apparently, they had had an argument earlier that morning about Karen Reed being too nice to his niece and nephew. So, but I do think that some of this is very negative for her. I do think that. Liz wants to know, if this ends up in a mistrial again, Will the Commonwealth try it a third time? I don't think we can know that until we actually get to that stage. Part of it might depend on what the jury says when they come out and when they talk about it. Or, but one thing I think will be different this time, I think that if they are able to decide on some of the 3 counts, that they will. The judge will allow that. Because last time it ended up with the jury coming out afterwards and saying, yeah, 2 of those 3 counts, we had decided on those, and only 1 was left. They never had the opportunity really to express that to the judge. And but it went all the way up through appeal, and that's why we're here at this second trial. There was nothing that was improper about what the judge did, according to the appellate courts. So will they try it a third time? I don't know. It may depend. For example, if what they found was that Karen Reed, that the 2 counts, the murder, leaving the scene under intoxication, if those 2, second-degree murder, if those 2 were ones that the jury really could agree on, yeah, Karen Reed didn't do that. One thing they might do is try it on just a lesser charge. I think the other 2 charges might be removed, but we will see what happens when the jury actually makes that kind of decision. So BTG is asking about the third party reading the text messages between 2 other people. And I don't know if there was some kind of agreement about that. Now, he gathered this as collecting evidence. The statements by the defense by the defendant were admissions against interest, and therefore could be something included. And besides, she wanted that in. So my guess is that, well, they would have to have found each one to be an exception under the hearsay, what Brian said, what Karen said. And I don't know all the details in the background on how exactly they made that decision, but it is often the case that you'll have a trooper cover a lot of evidence. That's pretty normal. But in this case, it was the defense putting it in through the trooper who was the prosecution witness. All very, very strange. All right. There is a question. Chloe wants to know, can the defense call Proctor? And if not, why not? Yes, they could. And I heard on a little clip, Karen Reed leaving the court yesterday, and the question asked to her was, she was asked, are they going to call Proctor? And she said no. And they said, are you going to call Proctor? And she said TBD, to be decided. So we will have to wait and see. There's at least an option, but she seemed to suggest it wasn't a sure thing. And she did state that the Commonwealth would not be calling Proctor. So there was that. All right. Thank you, Lousy David. I appreciate very much chipping in for a nice meal for us in Iceland. Thank you. I appreciate that very much. Thank you so much, Bethany. Yesterday, and I was going to say something about this at the end. Hopefully I'll hold it together better than last time I tried to talk about this. Yesterday was the 1-year anniversary of my husband's death. We had just gorgeous celebration with we had a bunch of friends and family come over. It was so nice to remember him and to have all the people we love remember him. It was wonderful. So I'll show you some pictures about that one day. All right. Kate is a new member. Awesome. Thank you, Sunset Gazing. Yeah, I've never been to Iceland. I'm very intrigued. I think it'll be interesting. I'll show y'all some pictures from Iceland too, so you can come with, feel like you're coming with. Thank you, Mitt Spunky, for the lawyerly memberships, because y'all are definitely going to want to be members next week when I introduce my daughter and we do whatever it is we're going to be doing from Iceland. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It will be very unscripted. It will be a lot of fun. Coco, new member. Awesome. Thank you, Marlon, putting some to the trip for Iceland. We have 2 mods here, Marlon and Mama Pink. So grateful to both of them. Thank you to both of them. And Amy is a new member. Very glad to have you. All right, so a few more questions. I do not know if Higgins is being called NHL pins. They put all these in, so he doesn't technically have to be. They've gotten a lot in. There were some more they could get in. Maybe Higgins refused to testify. Maybe he said, I'm going to take the 5th this time. That maybe. I don't know. He did testify to some things last time. He may have waived some of that. Yes, I agree, Constance. The junior high school text messages just Stop the fingernails on the chalkboard, please. All right, Cindy asking me, how do you think it will look if Proctor and Higgins don't get called? How will the jury see it? And I'm with you, Cindy. It is kind of hard to picture that because having watched the first trial, that was such an important centerpiece of the trial. Both of those pieces of testimony, both of those witnesses were critically important. What do I think? I think the jury will be very interested in whether Proctor gets called. I don't know if they will have as much reason to wonder about Higgins because he doesn't really take the case anywhere in terms of the Commonwealth. So I think if anything, they wonder, well, if you think he did it, why didn't you call him and ask him that, Karen Reed's team? So I don't think they will just think as much about Brian Higgins not being there as they will about Trooper Proctor. And one of the reasons they're going to think a lot about Trooper Proctor not being there is because the defense is making absolutely sure they will think about that by mentioning Proctor anywhere and everywhere. And you can be guaranteed that if he is not called, that will be a centerpiece of the closing argument for the defense. Absolutely. I can do a live from the hot springs. Wow, that sounds interesting. I really am looking forward to seeing those hot springs. They sound amazing. Thank you, Ruth. I appreciate all the people thinking about me yesterday. It was the strangest day because I got up. I told you I was going dark. We wouldn't be having a live. And I'm thinking I'm just going to get ready to have the people over. And instead, I wake up and my dad has this emergency and we end up in the hospital. In fact, he's still there. I spent all day, the day that George died, in the same hospital where he died. It was just crazy. I mean, 2 floors down. Like, oh my gosh. But, it was kind of good in a sense because it kind of just forced me to deal with it and to just cry and remember. And I couldn't escape it. And I couldn't just get ready for the party and try to do other things. No, I was right there face to face with the idea that, this is right where it was. And this happened a year ago. My dad, by the way, is doing great. So, all right. Thank you so much. And here's Carmina. There seems to be a lot of speculation about who the Commonwealth will call or not call. Where is it coming from? So Carmina, Carmina's asking, do you have to give the other lawyers a heads up? You do put out a witness list. That's at least in every court I know about. You have to submit a witness list. But here's how those witness lists work. They are way more than the number of people you're actually going to call. So there might be 75 people in there. And the reason you list all those 75, sometimes people may do it strategically. Well, I'm going to bury my real witnesses in here. But a lot of times it's because you think to yourself, I don't know for sure. I don't think I'm going to call this person. But if I leave them off my witness list, I'm not going to be allowed to call them, and you never know. So you put a lot of extra names on there. And that's why it can be really hard to tell from the list exactly who will be called. Not every court forces you to tell the other side before the testimony the next day who's going to be called. I think it's absolutely a matter of professionalism to tell the other side these are the people so they can be ready and have their exhibits ready, and so that they don't waste time trying to, that witness. I just think it's unprofessional when you don't tell the other side. That's my personal view on it. Not every court makes you do that. But in most courts, I would say ask that you share that information the night before. So at least the night before, you'd say, tomorrow I'm going to be calling these people. And then both sides know and can prepare to make sure that it's as streamlined as possible. CSI asking, have you ever thought there's a third story of what happened in CSI? If you knew how bad I am with abbreviations, we are all very lucky that I was able to read that. Please write out everything because I'm terrible with abbreviations. But yes, I've definitely thought about that. There are maybe not so much a third story as a hybrid story, something where part of what's said is true and part is not. But I'm always intrigued by your theories. Definitely send me strange or interesting theories that you have. Sky Goddess 87, celebrating milestones helps us heal. It really was healing yesterday. It was amazing, just amazing. So No, I mean, after we got my dad taken care of, but the rest of it, having the people for the party, incredible. Oh, thank you. Thank you, WV, West Virginia Church Outhouse. I appreciate that very much. And for those of you just coming in, we will be reporting live from Iceland next week. I say live, it may be recorded. I don't know, we'll be reporting from Iceland. Our whole schedule will be different. It will be wacky. It will be weird. It's going to be a lot of fun. And you will meet my daughter. Now, it's going to go under the members only, at least at first. And we'll see how it goes. And if it goes okay, then we'll pull it out. But I definitely want your input. Do not forget, please, to send me your questions from the trial, little summaries of the trial, little clips you want me to respond to, things like that. I'd really appreciate that. DCZ, brand new member. Glad to have you. All right, we'll do a question or two more, and then I will talk to y'all sometime next week. Fair Green asking, is this the craziest, most dilettante investigation? No chain of custody, misstating evidence. It is really odd. I find it astonishing that they didn't mark where they found these pieces. I'm even more shocked that they took pieces from the front yard and didn't for a month mark them into evidence. That's wild. That's just wild to me, because my normal expectation would be the police are going to be really careful with this. They're going to document everything. They know it's coming into evidence. They know it is evidence in this case, a murder case. They may not have known all of that, but well, really they had, because they'd already been going after Karen Reed by the time they collected some of these pieces. So yeah, I think they really pretty much did know. All right, Kimberly asking me, do you think the jury thinks Karen is likable with texting Higgins while still dating John? And happy Mother's Day. Thank you, Kimberly. And so I think that these text messages hurt Karen with her likability. I mean, there's just no question about it. They are a double-edged sword. They may pin some blame on Higgins, but they also lower the likability factor for Karen Reed. That's just, that absolutely is happening. But I do think the way it was brought in was better than what happened last year. I thought the way it was brought in last year through Brian Higgins was way worse and made things more difficult. All right. Well, do not forget to join up and to look for the reports from Iceland next week. And I will look forward to showing you some pictures, telling you more about the Karen Reed case. I can't wait to hear from y'all on my Gmail account. Be sure to reach me there. You can get that. You can get that email straight from the YouTube about page or something like that. I forget exactly what it's called. All right. And I will see you next week. There we go.